Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Career Climb. If you are not familiar with the Career Climb, this is where we spark conversations with executives and industry leaders. They come and they share their perspectives on leadership and workplace culture through real life cases, not theory. We don't do hypotheticals and theory around here. And honestly, I can't wait for you to meet tonight's special guest, Miara Shaw, and she's going to dig into tonight's case with me. But if we have yet to meet, I am your host, Julia Rock. I'm the founder and CEO at Rock Career Development, and we are a Houston-based consulting firm that helps organizations to reduce their turnover and increase long-term growth through leadership transformation solutions. And again, I'm just excited for you to be in the building with us tonight. But if you want to catch up on past episodes of the Career Climb, if you realize you like it, you can connect with me here on LinkedIn, or you can go to rockcareer.com/CC archive, and you can view our full YouTube playlist so that you can catch all the past episodes and past seasons. And tonight we're going to keep the conversation active, interactive. So I'm going to ask you guys to talk to us in the chat, ask us questions, challenge us if you want to. We want to make sure that we are getting to the heart of the matter for you and you're able to take away actionable, practical strategies from tonight's conversation. But enough is enough. I've talked enough to get us started. It's time for you to meet our special guest expert tonight, Miara Shaw. Let me go ahead and bring her up. And we're going to be talking about fun and leadership, and can leadership actually be fun? So let's talk about it, Miara. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm already answering. Leadership can absolutely be fun. We'll explain why, but that makes it more exciting, right?
I mean, honestly, for me, that this topic, I feel like leadership always comes off being so dry, right? Like it's like, you've got to do the right thing and set the right examples and set expectations and all of those things we need to do for sure. But I feel like it takes the fun out of it. So I'm excited for us to have the conversation. And so for those of you who are watching, I want you guys to tune in and also let us know in the chat where you're watching us from. Would love to hear from you. So let's go ahead and get started, Myra. I want the folks to actually know, who they're listening to today. So would you please introduce yourself to the viewers?
Yeah, my name is Miara Shaw, and you'll see Maven in front of my name there. And a Maven is simply someone that shares their knowledge with others. And really, my audience gave me that name. One of my business names is Maven Business Academy. They started calling me Maven Myra. I called them Maven Nation. It turned into a whole thing. So we have gone with that. And I really work with professional executive women, business founders, and student leaders, really around leadership development and how do they integrate more work-life integration. I am definitely a proponent of leading well and living well, which means we can't work all day and think we can survive on 2 hours of sleep and everything's going to be everything, because it's not. And so that's been one of my big focuses. And this year, I am intentionally focused on including more purposeful play with leaders. And of course, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but that has been, I think, really a mind shift and game changer around the whole leadership piece, so that it doesn't feel so stuffy, so tight, so like, I have to be up here to be a great leader. You don't. You can lead great right where you are.
And I know we're going to get into it, but in my mind, when I hear purposeful play and leadership, it takes me back to corporate when it was like the forced fun, right? Like we're going to go and do this team building exercise, and we're going to
Right.
build this thing together. And it's just like, I don't want to do this. I have so much work to do. I'm not having fun because I want to go do my work. So,
Right.
so I'm interested to hear this spin. And so leading into that, though, so thanks for sharing your background, but leading into that, like, why do you think we actually need to have this conversation at all when it comes to fun in leadership? Why does this even matter?
I think in our world, be it a corporate space or a business founder, uh, business owners, leaders are under a lot of stress. Some of it could potentially be self-imposed. Some of it is just the world environment that we're in, right? And if we are not intentional to include this purposeful play. And another word that you could almost substitute with purposeful play is joy. We're
Ooh.
not intentional to include joy in our work, then if we're leading the people under us, reporting to us, they're probably not going to have joy either, right?
Mhm.
And we know once we can tap into joy, and we're always intentional to use the word joy versus happiness, joy is not conditional. I can have joy even in a storm, in a struggle, a barrier. And I think that is the component that shifts a potential work culture, a whole work community into a different mindset because they're not looking to just have fun, right?
Right.
Because you think about it, you're at work, you have this whole project to finish, and they're talking about, let's have fun and have an ice cream social. You're like, no, I need to, I don't want to be here all night. I got work to do.
Mhm.
But if you're talking about even the wording, purposeful play, joy, people are like, well, I could probably take 30 minutes and get some of that because you automatically feel this is going to benefit me. This is going to benefit my team. And I think that's the difference. We're not talking about just having fun, right?
Mhm.
Joy, purposeful play really does something on the inside of a person that really encourages you to be a better team player, a better leader, a better performer with what you're doing because you're doing it from a different mindset. Fun is one thing, team buildings, ice cream socials. But when you're talking about purposeful play and joy, that's really more of a mindset and an internal adjustment that if I can get something out of this as well, it's going to benefit the whole team.
And so I love that you brought up joy. So I'm going to throw a little curveball question in here for you, but typically when people think about work, right? They don't think about joy at all, right? They think about I'm
Hmm.
going to have joy at church, I'm going to praise on Sunday,
Right.
right? Have joy with my family at the holidays or barbecue or whatever. But when they think about work, joy never comes up. So how is it that you're able to shift that mindset or help people shift into the mindset about joy at work?
Well, for me, as I have been a business owner now for 10 years, and one of the things that I really started thinking about is as a business owner, I get to create what I want. I get to create what I feel like I need. And I think we have not traditionally associated joy with work. That's a
Right.
fact, right? But look, the last piece of data I saw around this is that 86% of Americans do not enjoy their work. Eight,
Ooh,
80, 86%. That's
that's
it.
that's almost 90%. That's crazy.
That's crazy. And when we think about why are they not enjoying their work, right? I don't enjoy every function of my work. I don't like doing top of the month close out with the counting numbers and all of that, but it has to be done. But if we can start to shift the mindset of what people get with work, what can you get with work? Maybe we can start to improve people actually wanting to be in these roles, in these jobs, and do great work. When we can shift mindsets shift our internal perspective, we can't help but have better leaders, better employees, better teams. Right. Yeah. Traditionally, we don't associate work with joy, but we can.
I,
There's
I,
nothing from stopping us from doing it.
I love that because what we're looking at here is really about us taking ownership and from a mindset perspective, right? And people always feel like mindset work is real woo woo, but
Right.
honestly, if you're going to work every day, and I think the math works out that we spend about a third of our lives at work, right? If
Right.
you're spending that much time at work, having the right mindset is going to make a difference as to how you show up in that environment and then how you leave that environment.
Yeah.
Many of us are hating our jobs and then we go home and then we're yelling at our family, we're missing out on this, we're conking out early, and we're missing out on important activities because we're drained from the work. So I'm just wondering how that mindset shift, I mean, that is can be a really powerful tool
Yeah,
to.
I mean, even when you think about the level of burnout and exhaustion that people are experiencing in the workplace,
Mhm.
listen, the work is the work, right? It's got to get done. But again, if we can have a much better perspective, mindset, heart set toward what we're doing, I really believe that is the big difference. We can get more tools. AI gives us more tools, right?
Right.
Technology gives us more tools, but it doesn't necessarily give us more joy. We have to be intentional to make that shift. And leaders, leaders are going to be the ones that say, if I have it, I can give it to my team, or I can at least lead them in the direction where they can discover it for themselves, right? And if leaders can do that, they can get the better productivity, the better, work life creation that people want. I think one of the big pushbacks with corporations wanting, you allow employees to work from home during the pandemic because they had to. They successfully kept companies afloat and did all the things. And now companies are on this a lot. Some of them, you have to come back into the workplace. And I think one of the greatest pushbacks on that for people is they found some greater level of work life integration that gives them more joy.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to give it up.
Right.
Companies are thinking, oh, well, people just want to be lazy or they don't want to do their work. If you really surveyed your people, you would find people saying, oh, I now had the ability to take my daughter to school and drop her off or get to the game or the PTA, whatever the thing is they couldn't do by being forced into the office 5 days a week. They can now do that. What the underlying theme of that is they're including more joy, more balance, more rhythm in their lives. That automatically makes, in my head, a better employee, a better leader when they can feel more fulfilled on both sides of their life, the work life and the home life. It automatically should produce better people, better results, all the things. That underlying thing is joy. That's what people are trying to articulate with the resistance to wanting to be in the office 5 days a week. I have more joy when I can balance this thing out a little bit better.
And I love you brought up the pandemic and the return to office because I'm thinking about when I was still incorporated and it was during the pandemic. And I don't have any kids or anything, but I was just able to work out more regularly. I was able to cook. I was able to do things that the commute sometimes it got in the way of because I worked long hours in the office. So you're getting
Right.
home at 8 or
No
something.
cooking.
And it's like, man, forget that. So let's go ahead and get this Chipotle
Exactly.
going, right. And so it's just even the small things that can bring you that joy. So I love that. So before we get into the case study though, so for those of you who are listening, we're about to get into the case study, but I do have one last question before we hop into it. Is there a particular experience that stands out to you when it comes to fun in leadership, or having purposeful play in the workplace for leaders? Any particular experience that you want to talk through?
One of the experiences for me that I found with my work is just having time to interact with friends,
Mm,
and we're not talking about work. I think the first thought leaders might think is, oh my God, I got to figure out a thing, pay for a thing, do a whole thing. No one's asking you to make it that deep. No, no. We're
facts.
just not that complicated as humans.
Right.
It's the simple things that bring us joy. It really is. And when you think about even this, like if a leader is listening to this and they're thinking, like, I think this is good. I would like to have my employees, my team to have more joy. You don't have to go figure it out. Ask your team. Ask.
Right.
Don't don't set
You
up
don't have to
bowling.
go it alone.
They,
Just
they
ask them.
might not be they might not be bowlers. It just might not be their thing. Right? Just ask the people what they would like. Right? Now you're going to get varying answers on that. But even let's take for example, I've been out of the corporate space for 10 years, but as an idea, let's say you're working in office 5 days a week and your leader says, a leader decides, I'm going to ask my team what would bring them more joy. And if your team says, if we could work at home at least 1 day a week, I feel like that would bring me more joy. I feel like I could have more work life integration. Is that doable? Is it worth giving more joy to your full team where they feel more part of it? They can have better results. Simple, right? One thing. Again, if they work from home for years during the pandemic and not asking for 1 day a week, Surely somebody in the HR space, whatever space you have, can figure out how, if that's what employees are saying, this will give me more joy, more balance. This is what we've got to figure this out, right? So I don't think that it has to be a particular thing.
Hmm.
Ask your people, those that are directly affected, ask them, get them involved in the decision process, and then they're going to feel more tied to it. They're going to anticipate better results because they got to have a voice in it. So again, don't think of it as a complicated big thing we got to figure out. Ask your people, get them involved in what are some simple, and maybe it's not the work from home 1 day a week. Okay, we can't do that one right now. What's another thing? It could be something simple.
Right.
Maybe we get to come in an hour later, 2 hours later, 1 day a week, and we're not sitting in traffic. Again, there's so many options to integrate in how do we get more balance, more joy in the lives of employees, and that has to start with the leaders, understanding they have the ability to do this for themselves. This is not just about your team. This is be selfish. This is for you as well to really help improve that. And I think it improves the overall. The thing the leaders want is better performance, meet the goals, all those things. You're going to get there with less strife, conflict, moaning, groaning, if you can give on this a little bit more.
And you said something really important there. It's not just about your team, right? That the
Right.
title of this is, can leadership actually be fun? So
Yep.
not just about the people, it's also about you as well.
Absolutely.
So for the leaders who are listening, think for yourself as like, what would bring you joy at work? What would be
Right.
more fun for you? And how can you set the right example? Part of this is just modeling the right behaviors
Yeah.
as a leader.
Yeah.
One of the things that I used to do sometimes, if I just left it to, it's like, I'm gonna go do something. I gotta go
Right.
take care of something. And so my team felt that, hey, if I need to go take care of something, I don't have to make up some excuse and I got hit by a bus. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's like we don't have to go all out. Just like, hey,
Yeah.
I've got some stuff to take care of. Sure,
Yeah.
handle your business. But it's hard to feel comfortable with just doing those small things if we're not modeling the behaviors. And
Yeah.
we have to remember that this is our workplace experience too, as leaders.
Yes.
This is our
Yeah.
workplace experience. So,
You
love
know, I don't have a squad of employees, but I do have other businesses that I do business with. And
that.
I've come to know a lot of those business founders personally. And some of my close friends who are business founders I do business with will tell you, if there's something that I need done and we've had a conversation, or I see that you're in a high stress season, so you got a lot going on, I'm not going to call you with my last minute request. I'm just not going to do it. And when they hear, oh, Myra got that done. Oh, Myra, why didn't you call me? Sis, your plate was overrunning.
Yeah.
I can't, I'm intentional and I want to be authentic in my leadership, in that I'm always asking people to have more work-life integration, to create more balance. I can't see that you're out of balance, and because I need something, I'm like, well, but I need it. Let me go ahead and ask you. No, no. That's not authentic. And I will say, next week, 2 weeks from now, whenever your plate settles down a bit, I want to look at this particular project. Oh, what we can do? No, I don't. It's not. I don't need it done today. We can look at it in 2 weeks. That's me understanding that if I'm asking other people to always lead with those eyes, to make sure that you have some rhythm in your life, some balance, I have to lead that way. I can't ask people to be out of balance for me because I'm asking when I know that for whatever reason in their life, they're at a high stress season. There's a lot going on, whatever that reason might be. I want to be intentional to honor that when I can do that.
Yeah, and I think, what's a good kind of way to summarize that is like, when we talk about fun and leadership, it's not that, hey, you're joking and doing roller skates down the
No,
hall, right?
no,
That's not the idea, but it's more so about how can you reduce the stress level on
absolutely.
yourself
Yeah,
and your team, and really make sure that you're creating a space where leadership for yourself doesn't feel so burdensome or cumbersome, and it's something that you can do from a ease may be a little bit of a stretch, but it's more so from a place of balance
Yeah.
and true integration. So I love that. So now let's get into it, Myra.
All
Let's get
right.
so for those of you who are listening, if you want to grab a pen and paper to kind of hear what the case study is today, I'm going to give you the highlights so that you know what we're talking about. So we are dealing with a stressed out sales team. So Striker Tech and Co. This is the particular organization. They're struggling with their sales team's performance. They've got low morale, high burnout, high turnover, and all the while they're still being asked to meet certain quarterly targets. And they've tried to motivate their people with better bonuses and leadership pep talks, and none of that is working. So the poor VP of sales, Jamie, she's been a leader for a long time. She's experienced. She believes in hard work, but she realized that by asking people to perform better, that wasn't sufficient. Right? That the energy was still draining from the team. So here is what we need to discuss today, or here's the challenge that Jamie has in front of her. In order to get the sales team to perform, she's got to improve the engagement and motivation, but she can't add any more stress. They're already stressed, people are already tired. And she's got to use some sort of different method to get the team back on track and help them to start meeting their sales performance targets, and improve morale and keep people from leaving the organization. So Myra, so let's get started here. Knowing what we know about Jamie, she's done her best. She's tried. They've tried bonuses and all the things. They've tried the top golf, right, and all the all the things and the pep talks and the town halls, and nothing is working. So, knowing what we've discussed about purposeful play and fun leadership, how do you think that could possibly make a difference on Jamie's team when everything else isn't working?
So the first thing that I would say is I think this is a skill set, and it is a skill set that we often overlook. But the first thing I would advise Jamie to do is ask and then listen. She's trying a lot of things, right? But what does your team need? Obviously, they didn't need the top golf.
Big facts.
Didn't work. That didn't work.
Do.
Right. So really asking your team, and again, this is, I think the truthful, open answers are going to come from teams that feel like they have trust with their leader. So as a leader, if you haven't done the work to build that trust, when the chips are tight and you need, the goals to be hit, it's going to be a challenge to try to get more out of people in that moment when you haven't done the work to build the trust. But let's say Jamie has built the trust and she just didn't ask, right? Do you want top golf, or do you think you need someone to come in and help you with better sales training? Maybe they just need a skill set update. Not to say that they're not good, but wow, look how much technology has improved and changed over just the last I won't even say 10 years, 5 years, right? So really listening. I think leaders we have this gut instinct to solve. And that's part of what we're assigned to do. But some of that solve, it can be more efficient, better served when we ask good questions and listen to the real answers. Because again, if we thought Top Golf was the answer and it didn't work, then we just need to say, I don't know. You tell me.
Right.
You tell me what you want. So start with asking tough questions and listening. And if you haven't done the work to build that trust where your team is going to give you those true, authentic answers, then maybe do some work around that first. And then, because again, I think even when a team recognizes that this person, my leader's trying to build a really good rapport, a good, authentic relationship with us as a team, that's going to go a long way. And they will start to then give you those real answers. So I think that's the most important thing, is to ask tough questions and listen for the real answers. And sometimes the answers aren't cute and they don't make you feel like a better leader.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, do you want the numbers to be hit, or do we want to stay where we are?
Those questions that need answers. Right? Questions that need answers.
Yeah.
And I love that, the idea of just asking the question,
Yeah.
right? Like your team knows what they want, they know what they need, but if you don't ask them and you make assumptions, now they're even more frustrated because it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so here you go giving us some other solution,
Right.
some other team building thing that no one asked for,
Yeah.
and now we're wasting time doing this,
Yeah. And
but
they probably already talked among themselves.
oh, for sure. They've already had the conference room or the coffee area chat
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. The
they've
water cooler chat. They've already talked about it. And they're
already
just
talked about.
waiting for you to come with the real questions so they can give
Exactly.
real answers.
And one of the things that you also said was about the importance of building that trust, because I think about even the idea of fun or play. If you're around a bunch of people that you don't trust, you're not really going to let your hair down or relax at all. I know that
Yeah.
I personally don't.
Yeah.
When I'm around my friends, I can dance and I can have a good time and live my best life because these are people that I trust.
Yeah.
If you're around a bunch of people that you don't trust, it's like, I don't know, you're wondering, and you've got to be on. You can't really relax.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think it's really important, that idea of having trust, because these are people that you then feel like, hey, I feel safe with you.
Yeah.
I can trust you with what I have going on. I can trust you in this space. So I really love that idea of
Julia, let me give you a quick story
yes, please. I love it.
around that. When I was still in corporate, and I was a natural gas trader, one of the nation's few Black female traders. So I had a team of schedulers and operations folks and all this thing. And here's the thing: the amount of trades I was making in a day, and the amount of gas I was moving, there's going to be errors. It's going to be mistakes. Okay, so here's what I would tell my team: if you made a mistake, and I had a habit, I would go work out at the gym at lunch. So when I came back, they would have already known what the error was.
Okay.
Okay. And I would always just tell them, you be the first one to tell me. That's it. You be the first one to tell me. I don't want the trader from the other company calling me to tell me first. So I set the environment that I'm not anticipating that we're going to have 100% error free.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have an error, I just want you to come tell me first so we can figure out I can figure out the solution. That's
Right.
it. And then we move on. Now I would, rib them a little bit, give them a hard time, like, what were you doing this morning? Eating ice cream while I was talking. All of the things, right? But what they know is I can come tell Myra that I made a mistake, and she's not gonna blow up, and she's not gonna act like it's the end of the world and do all this craziness. And by the time I could sometimes be walking back onto the trade floor from the gym, they'd be heading to my desk, ready, okay, Myra, this is what happened. And I'm like, okay, do I need to do something? No, I've already fixed it for the next cycle. All right, great. That's it. End of story. So that when the mistake is maybe bigger, they're not hesitant to come tell me because they didn't come tell me something and I blow up and act nutty and act like the world's going to fall off of this axis. That's building trust.
Yeah.
From a leader perspective, so that when your teammates, your employees, or whoever comes to you when something is not going right, it's going to happen in business.
Mm-hmm.
That they can trust you and don't feel like when they come to you like, oh my God, I got to brace myself because I'm getting ready to get a whole beat down. Why would a person want to come back to you again?
Right.
That
I
it,
mean, it's insane. And I think, what I talk to leaders about is putting yourself in the employee's shoes, thinking about
yes,
how you feel when you have to go and tell your boss. So let's say you're
yes,
the VP of whatever, and you've got to go talk to the CEO, CFO,
hmm,
whoever. If and how they react to issues and mistakes, and you don't necessarily like it because they blow up or whatever.
right,
You don't appreciate that. So why would you have that same attitude towards your people and make them feel uncomfortable to come and bring things forward? You
yeah,
want to create a space where people understand your expectations. That's fair.
right,
But there's a difference between understanding expectations and making someone just feel really bad about themselves because
absolutely, yeah.
was made. Things happen, right?
And that little bit of jargon back and forth where I'm going to give them a little bit of hard time about the mistake just adds a little bit of joy. It was a mistake, but we can still get along. We can still have a pleasant work environment. We don't have to create this crazy work environment because there are some mistakes made, right? That's the leader is setting the tone of that culture.
That's right.
If I'm being loud and crazy and blowing up, then that sets all the tension and everybody's all worried and on, right? That's the whole culture. Now people don't enjoy coming to work. Now there's no joy in the work environment. Now no one wants to talk to each other. Now no one wants to come to the manager, tell the manager like, oh, I made a mistake. I fixed it, but I did make it. No one wants to do that because the leader is not displaying joy and purposeful play. And again, that purposeful play was not, oh, we left and went bowling, but someone made a mistake and they came told me openly and I shared the ribbing about it openly. Like, oh
Mhm.
man, like you made another mistake, girl. What we gonna do with you? That's
Right.
it. That's
Right.
it. Right. So
And you
now everyone hears that and nobody's like, oh, like if I make a mistake, I can go tell her too. Like she's not gonna, create a hostile work environment. And when you find those types of environments, you don't have to look very far. Just look to the leader. The
mm,
leaders create the temperature of and the culture of the company. Period. It's not up to the employees to create it. It's
right.
up to the leaders. And sometimes that means we as leaders, we have to get our own development work. We have to check ourselves. We have to be more self-aware. Whatever that looks like, the tone and the temperament is coming from leadership.
I love that. Like the taking and kind of high grading the idea of play and fun, right? Like I said earlier, we think of those terms as I'm going to do a thing. I'm going
Right.
bike riding, I'm gonna go do
Right.
bowling or whatever. But it's really about where are you having fun right in the
Right.
space where you are,
Yeah.
enlightening the mood a little bit. Not
Lightening the mood.
everything is not the end of the world.
It's
Every,
not.
every, I feel like I think about my time in corporate. I was in finance, and there were so many times where you feel where it's like, oh, this is the end of the world. We messed up this PowerPoint. And it's like, it's a PowerPoint, y'all. We go just fix the font and
There's an edit button.
you know what I mean? Just fix the font and move on, y'all. Like it's not that deep. And so and one of the things that you said earlier was you be the one to tell me. I always told my team, I said, do not let me get blindsided. Don't let me get
Mm-mm.
embarrassed out here.
Let's not do that.
You know what I mean? If you tell me like, man, we messed this up, because then I can go in and kind of preempt that and have the conversation. I was like,
Right.
just don't let me get embarrassed, y'all.
Right.
I can deal with mistakes. Just don't let me get embarrassed out here. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I love that. So let's think about this and keep moving forward. So we talked about how all of the benefits that come with trying to incorporate fun and play and lightening the mood. So why do you think a lot of leaders, and maybe some of the ones who are listening, may hesitate when it comes to actually incorporating this? Because, well, this feels childish. It doesn't feel like the leadership that I should know and all the books I read, the Simon Sinek and the John Maxwell, right?
Right.
So why do you think they hesitate?
Because it's not traditionally the path that's been taken.
Mm.
That's it. It's just not the tradition. The tradition has been to come to work, to be very serious, and we've got to do these things and figure these things out. And listen, corporations are struggling so much with the younger generations with retention
Oh yeah.
because they do not want to come to work and everybody's all serious and stuffy, and they just don't want the environment, right? So even colleges are struggling with retaining students because of a lot of these traditional environments.
Mm.
So, I think when you think about multiple generations work in corporations,
Mhm.
most of them, right? And if you're a leader and let's say you're 50 plus, we did not grow up in the culture where these people were worried about joy at all. They're like, do your work, get your check, be here on time. Be here.
Exactly.
Right.
Work for 40 years, get your
Right.
retirement plaque, and go
Get
out
your
the door.
little button and your certificate and we're gonna send you home. But when you think about being innovative
Mm.
with younger employees, with younger leaders, we have to have our mind open to see that adjustments have to be made. And if purposeful play, joy, is a thing that can help create an environment that you can keep multiple generations in your company. Think about the power of retention with that. Boomers are retiring. Gen X, they're, thinking real quickly and hard on how to get out. You have the younger folks. And if no one wants to be around, they're not going to stay around. To your own detriment, if you don't get some shifts figured out, who's coming up the pipeline? Who's in your leadership pipeline? You can't train leaders on, all of this in-depth knowledge. You can train somebody on a process.
That's right.
But what about when the process doesn't work and they need to have some level of knowledge to solve it? Those are the reasons why you need leadership pipelines where you're developing people along the way. But if you can't keep anyone, right? Because, when you think about Gen X and Gen Z, they don't want the traditional work environments. They just don't. So you can say, well, this is how I, did my 30, 40-year career. We didn't come to work and laugh and have fun. Well, okay, I hope you're ready to, shut down the company when you retire, because they're just not interested in that type of environment. So I think the biggest obstacle is traditionally, it just not has been a focus of what leadership or management feel like they need to include or be worried about. But I think the younger generations have spoken it so loudly. There have to be shifts that are going to happen if you want to retain employees in your pipeline, especially your leadership pipelines.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I did a post probably about a month ago with a study that talked about the pipelines for leadership, particularly middle management, and how middle management is on track for burnout in 2025. But then the Gen Zers who should be queuing up for those roles, they don't want them because they see the stress and the burnout. And
they're like, get somebody else to do it.
Get somebody else to do it. And so, but if they were able to make these mindset shifts in those organizations and really incorporate things like having more work-life integration, having the purposeful play, taking the stuffiness and the pressure out, you might be able to better build out those pipelines and have the right talent for those opportunities.
Absolutely.
So let's get to how the actionable things, as we're coming up on the last few questions, what are some practical ways, knowing what we know, and knowing why some of these leaders may have hesitated in the past, what are some practical ways that leaders can start using fun in their leadership style today, right? Because there may be some who are like, I don't even know where to get started with this. Do I just go to people's desk and laugh at a random joke?
Please don't.
Right. Let's not be weird. Right. But they may be wondering like, okay, so I've heard all these good nuggets, but how do I actually go and do this now? Because Jamie has to go and do this. If we think about the case study, Jamie has to go do this now.
So in the case study, I would say for Jamie, who, bless her heart, is struggling. She really is struggling to reach out to a leadership facilitator or developer like a Julia or a Myra to help come in and help her. Might not be the time to help the team. It's the leader that needs to help, right? So Jamie probably just needs some help with figuring out, here are all the things I've done or tried to do. None of this has been successful. What do I need to do, right? And then Jamie, along with maybe that facilitator, can bring in the team and say, what are some things they can help guide the conversation? Because if Jamie hasn't been comfortable, if she hasn't had success with the things she's tried, she's probably not going to be very comfortable with pulling, something out of the hat that's brand new and trying it with her team.
Right.
So a facilitator just helps you make that transition, and they're the guide for you. They help you work through these things. And again, it's one of those things about consultants. If it doesn't work out, blame it on the consultant, right?
Right.
It actually does work, right? But
it's an easy out. It's like, the consultant. We just won't hire them again.
Yeah, we terminate their contract. And you're like, oh, okay, that's what it was. But I think a lot of the traditional things, and again, this purposeful play, this joy in work, all of these things are definitely fairly new concepts, right? So I would say to leaders who are struggling with, Myra, I don't even know what to do or how to do. I thought the Topgolf thing was the thing. Mm-hmm. And we definitely know with younger people, those are not the things. They're over, the snacks,
The snacks, the
The
forced
snacks that
fun
do it,
activities, they don't want it. Get some
they're
nugget.
over it. Yeah, the shuffleboard in the break room. It lasted for a little while, but
Hmm.
they're over. They People really want to know that you care about me as a human, and the bag of Cheetos, it doesn't do it. So I would really say to those leaders, get someone to come in and help you as the leader, and then also incorporate your team on what does that shift look like, because let's be honest, different things are going to work for different teams.
That's right.
You have to know the pace of your team. When I worked on the trade floor, we were in a very fast paced environment, right? The market, the trading market, was not going to stop because we were trying to have a team building.
Right.
It's still moving,
Right.
right? Certain things just could not be done in the morning. They have to be done after the market closes, right? So there are different things that are going to work for different teams. So I would say to a leader, you don't have to feel embarrassed or ashamed if you don't know what the solution to what we're talking about is. Like, how do I re-engage my team, get them motivated and excited to meet these goals? If you don't know, if you've tried, it doesn't work, and you're like, I don't know, invite someone in to help you. It's
I,
going to pay off.
I love that idea because I think where leaders feel the pressure because they are leaders to like, I've got to come up with something. If I go to my team and I'm empty handed, right? If I don't have an answer, they're going to be looking at me like, well, you're not really good at your job, are you? Right.
Right.
And it's like, that's not really how people are looking at it. They just want a solution. They rarely care where the solution comes from.
Absolutely.
Just let the solution shows up. If you're hungry, you don't care where the food comes from, as long as there's a meal in front of you.
Yeah.
And so for your people, if they're struggling, if they're demotivated and they're burning out, and then you bring in someone to help them with a solution, they're gonna be like, great, we'll take it. Right? No one wants to
Yes.
keep feeling burnt out. So for those of you who are listening, and if you have questions before we wrap up, please go ahead and drop them in the chat so we can make sure that we soak up some more of Myra's knowledge before she signs off with us. But if you are listening and you're like, hey, I don't know where to start, don't be afraid to reach out to someone like Myra, to someone like myself, and just get some direction and guidance, and we can help facilitate those conversations. Because if you've tried all the things and they're not working, you've DIY'd it enough, right? Like,
Yeah.
you've tried to DIY it enough. Now may be the time to get some help.
Yeah. And that's also another authentic connection point with your team. Team, I didn't know. I thought when I set up the Top Golf, that was going to get us over the hump and we were going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to reach out to someone because I want the best for you and for myself, and I want us to all be successful. Sharing that with your team, again, they're not looking at you like you had to have all the answers. You were authentic and open enough to share that you didn't, but you did tap into someone else that could help you and the team still be successful, although the leader might not have known. They knew enough to tap in someone else. Like, let me tap someone else in and bring them in for this.
Absolutely. So let me ask you one last, or I've got two last questions. But so when we think about like play and fun, it's easier to think about it in the context of kind of more a startup or tech savvy companies, right? Because it's like,
Right.
hey, it's a younger generation. But for older generations or older companies, more established. So like I said, I was in finance and all in oil and gas. So the conservative of the conservative,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So when you think about what it would take to try to introduce this concept in something that in an organization that's more conservative or stiff, for example, what do you think may be a kind of a different or a unique approach you'd have to take for those specifically?
I would say you're going to have to start out. To me, there's two approaches. You can start out with small doses, or you just got to bite the whole bullet and go, right? Because when you think about these really traditional companies, especially a vertical like finance, right? Listen, they were not ever really trying to talk about fun, right? When I went over to the accounting department cutting up, they'd be like, well, who is this? Who opened the gate and let this person in, right? So when you think about that, it doesn't mean that Julia worked in finance and she has no concept about fun.
Mm-hmm.
Julia has been conditioned that when she comes to work, she's not supposed to have fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? People are out having fun outside of work a lot of times. they shift into a whole different personality, if you will, when they
I've
come
seen
to
them at the
work.
happy hours. The turn up be real at the happy hours. I'm like, I didn't even know
You're like, who is that?
that. I didn't even know that you talked for real.
Right, right. So I really would say in that regard, especially like the more traditional work avenues, you as the leader can have some gauge on your team to say, should I piecemeal this? Should we just do a small thing? Or should we just say, hey, on Thursday at 2 o'clock, this is what we're all doing.
Mm,
You're going to get the surprise, the shock. You're always going to get a little moaning and groaning. But if you've brought someone in to help you cultivate what that should look like and feel like, your success rate is going to be at least 80% better, right? Anytime we try to do anything alone versus having an accountability partner, you having a leadership facilitator, that's your accountability partner as a leader, your success rate goes up to more than 80%.
wow.
80. Right, 80% because you have an accountability partner. Because if you're hiring someone to come help you, that's my job to know. That's my job to sit, learn about your team. What does y'all's work day look like? How stressful is it? What's the work demand? How many goals are you have? Like, why are you behind? What are you trying to do to learn all those things and then develop the right solution? I don't think, or I wouldn't advise that I can sit here and say, oh, here are the top 5 things that you should do because I don't know your team and I
Right.
don't know the demands on your team, right? And what constraints you're under. Is money a constraint or is time a constraint? Are tools and technology a constraint? What's the barrier that's keeping your team from getting what they feel like they need to be successful in this particular case study? They need to hit these targets. Why haven't they been hit? What's been the constraint? And maybe the constraint is something that can be solved rather easily. Maybe it's a tool, maybe it's technology, maybe it's just people problems.
Right.
Those are big enough barriers to keep you from reaching a goal, right? So,
That's right.
really connecting with someone to come in and truly evaluate the constraints, barriers, obstacles. What are those for your team so that you really can create a genuine experience that really invokes and cultivates this purposeful play? Here's another thing I want to add. I don't want leaders to think, oh, I'm going to talk about this purposeful play or this more joy in the workplace, and it's just going to appear. If you've traditionally or currently in a very toxic workplace, listen, I have a Maven quote that says, the work is not skippable. And
Mm,
you've got to set your mind that you're going to have to do the work.
yes.
And that could be the small doses. You're going to have to, because at that point, you're going to have to rebuild trust. That does not happen overnight. If people have been working in toxic work environments and not trusting management teams and all this stuff, you're not going to just come in with oh, here's how we're going to add joy. And everybody's like, oh, this is awesome. Let's do it. And we're like, why are they trying to do this? Are they trying to get rid of, like the mindset, the thoughts are not going to just be a buy-in.
Yeah.
So the work is not skippable means you're going to have to be committed to doing that small work, to understanding people are going to push back. They're still going to be negative because that's been the environment they've been in. You're going to have to be the leader and keep setting the example to do the work. If it's a big ship, it takes a while to turn it. And you've
Right.
got to stay committed to do that work.
I love that. Stay committed to do that work. And I lied, Myra. We've got an additional question for you. I want to make sure that we're able to answer this for our guest here. So you have talked about work life integration. What is
Mm-hmm.
some advice you can share for this if someone is in a high demand organization? Good
Yeah,
question.
great question. And that was my career. I mean, I again was a trader and talk about high demand. Listen, talk about hidden numbers. We were hitting the numbers. But here's one thing that I found for myself that I didn't so much incorporate when I was in the corporate space because I wasn't here, this mindset where I am now. But you own your morning routine.
Mm,
You own that before you arrive at the workplace. You have the power to own it. You might not own it today, but you have the power to own it. So what can that look like? That let's say you have to be at work at 8 and you normally get up at 7. Maybe you've got to get up at 6:30. so that you can have your quiet time. Your quiet, maybe it's a walk, maybe you're stretching, maybe you're doing some meditation, maybe you just want 5 minutes of solitude. The power of your morning routine, I don't want you to sleep on that,
Mm,
because it has the power to really guide how you, we cannot control so much of what's happening in a day. We absolutely control how we react, how we
mm,
respond. And if you set your day up that you're starting with the right mindset, the right mind frame, then when some things are happening during the day, you're like, okay,
mm. I love
do I
that.
need to be doing something about that, reacting? Or is that something that's just happening in the stream of the workday and I'm just going to let it float on by? We don't have to react to everything. And when we've conditioned our mind to, uh, uh, it's ready. It's going to keep doing that until you, we keep talking about mindset, until you make the shift and say, I'm not going to allow my stress level to be spiking up and down all day. You can control that. No matter what demand is happening in your workplace, you are in control of this.
That's right.
That's it. And the best way I found to set the tone for the day is setting the tone in the morning. If you wake up in the morning with, oh my God, grabbing your phone, checking text messages, replying on LinkedIn and sending emails, and like you go from sleep to,
Yeah.
what do you expect your day's going to be all day long? Like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But if you start your morning with that, whew, okay. And I always look at my calendar in the morning. Here are my requirements for today. Here are the meetings I have, the live streams, the virtual meetings, whatever it is. Okay. Here are my demands for the day. In between those demands, what am I going to be doing to reset myself? And that could simply be 1 minute of silence and just taking some deep breaths. You
Hmm.
don't have to leave if you can't, you're not in a space where you can get up and go walk around the building, right? Then maybe it's a quick trip to the restroom, in the stall, door locked, silence. Just breathe. That's
Mm,
it. Small increments. I don't want people to feel like work life integration has to be this big, overwhelming thing. Oftentimes, it's a small tweak, like literally a second tick on a clock. That's the small tweak you might need to make. Maybe you've been getting up at 7, that's enough time to get dressed, change, and zoom, you're out the door. You're already setting the pace for rush. So maybe your small tweak is you get up 30 minutes earlier. And I can hear you already saying, Myra, I don't even like getting up at 7. Okay, here's what I'm going to say: go to bed earlier. Maybe you're not going to be able to dead scroll on Instagram for 2 hours at night. Maybe we got to cut that down so we can get ourselves to bed to get restful sleep,
mm,
right? You have the power to make the adjustment because you are in control of this. You're maybe not being in control of the demands at your job, but you can be in control of your mindset, your breathing, your energy level, how much rest you get so that you are prepared for the day, which also keeps your stress, your cortisol level down. All of those things are within our power. Oftentimes we don't look at it that way. We're like, well, my boss is all demanding. Okay, could be. I'm not going to make that light, but you are in control of so many more things that give you the power to simply manage those stressful situations a bit better. And the more you do it, the more it becomes normal in your life. The more it's now just a habit. Like, I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to calm myself and leave out the door, not going 100 miles an hour, so that my day doesn't feel like it's going 100 miles an hour. That's why people are living in burnout and exhaustion. We just doing too much all the time.
doing the most, doing the
Yeah,
most. And one more thing I'll just share, in addition to that, and this came up on my live stream last week, was not everything that is urgent is important.
absolutely.
And so it may be a high demand organization, but are all the forest fires that are coming to, are they truly important, or is this an opportunity for you to show a little additional leadership to say, fully understand that this is an ask, but at this time, this is not, it doesn't seem like anything's going to break if we don't do this today. If we do this next week, it still meets the objective.
Yeah.
So I'm going to park this for next week. So it's also taking that agency and ownership to realize and have the conversations when necessary, that not everything that is urgent is important.
And here's a suggestion I'll add to that. If you're in that high demand situation and you're getting more and more things added to the plate. Oh, this is a fire, that's a fire. That you're like, well, how many fires do we really have?
Right.
I would suggest that whomever you need to give these outputs to start asking questions. Okay, I had these 3 things that you said you wanted by the end of the week. You emailed me with 2 additional things. I really want to be clear on what the priority is.
Mm-hmm.
Let them tell you, right? If you can't control what really goes first, right? Let them tell you. And that oftentimes gets a person to think like, oh, I forgot I gave you those other 2 things. Oh, okay. I don't need those this week. That's not the most urgent. These 2 items are the most urgent and I really need those this week. Ask the questions. Don't just keep letting it go on your plate more and more and more. And now you're feeling more burnout, more exhausted. Let's ask some questions. Okay. You added a few more things. What's the priority?
Mm-hmm.
And that might trigger them to go, oh, wow, I forgot about that. Or I said that was a fire. It's really not a fire.
Right.
That can wait, right? Because I think sometimes when that person doesn't get up and have their quiet time and meditation, they run at 100 miles an hour. So everything's a fire.
Right.
When it's not really.
Right. It's just smoldering. It's not really a
just
five-alarm fire.
Yeah. And when you can ask the question, that really gives pause for them to think through that for a moment and go, huh, yeah, I don't really need that one this week. You can take that one off for now. Yeah.
I love that. Don't be willing to ask questions. Don't just take what's on your plate. And that's a great place for us to wrap up tonight's conversation. Miara, thank you so much for all of the wisdom that you have shared with us tonight about how we can incorporate fun and purposeful play into the leadership space and into our workplaces. If folks want to get in touch with you, whether it's for facilitation or just have additional questions, how can they reach you?
Yeah, they can find everything about me at miarashaw.com. There's a speaker page there, which is, can be used for facilitation, keynotes, any of those things. Just fill out that form. It'll come to my team and then we'll reach back out to get connected. But everything about me they can find at miarashaw.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram and on Substack.
Oh, all right. So guys, if you want to get Miara in your shop to help drive some more of this conversation with your leadership teams, please do go ahead and reach out to her. So, and thank you again, everyone, for joining tonight. We hope that you found tonight's conversation helpful. You got all the gems. You took your notes. There are things that you can go and incorporate with your team. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, with a different guest. And so I hope that you will stay tuned. Thank you again for watching, and we will see you next week. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.